What's going on, guys? It's me, Zach Steele, bringing you guys another fantasy football video. So in this one, I'm going to go over how I think you guys should approach drafting with a later pick in the draft. So for example, here, this draft I've done as a mock draft I did with the 12th pick in a 12-team PPR draft. And obviously, having the 12th pick ends up being really similar to having like picks 10 through 12. I think you can use this as a good baseline. I think I'll just go through each of my picks and I'll sort of explain to you how I made the decisions I made so that you guys can sort of get some more insight into how I would approach drafting in this situation. You can sort of mix that with however you guys would approach it yourselves. So getting right into it, at pick 12, I took Davante Adams. Obviously today we heard that Aaron Rodgers will be back, so I think that's a far safer pick tonight than it would have been this morning. On top of that, normally I would advocate for at a later pick getting 2 running backs, but all the running backs I was really interested in went really early. As you can see, of the first 11 picks, 10 were running backs and 1 was Travis Kelce. So in that scenario, I think the best option for me was to get value at the wide receiver position. So to me, it was a toss-up between Tyreek Hill and Davante Adams, but with Aaron Rodgers coming back to Green Bay, I felt really confident taking Davante Adams there. Then obviously at pick 13, I feel like you do need to address the running back position in those first 2 picks, especially with a later pick here because you're not going to get another one down the road. I took Antonio Gibson here. I'm really high on Antonio Gibson. I think he's going to have a hell of a season, but I could understand if you want to take Najee Harris or Joe Mixon there, but I think Antonio Gibson's got legit top 5 RB upside, and he was RB5 on the season last year, so there's no reason he can't do that again this year. I think he's just being undervalued. It's an offense that's going to be, in theory, far more potent than it was last season, and there's really no reason for him not to outperform what he did last season. So then moving on to round 3. As you can see, at pick 36, I took CeeDee Lamb. So at this point in time, pretty much all the running backs I was interested in were off the board. A guy I was really hoping to fall to me at pick 36 was Chris Carson, but obviously he went at pick 30. Missed out on the 2 tight ends, Kittle and Waller, so there's nothing to be gained there. And it's just a little too early for me to feel comfortable taking a quarterback like Mahomes or Josh Allen. So I took CeeDee Lamb as my second receiver, and then I did take Josh Jacobs. It wasn't my favorite pick. I think Josh Jacobs will be fine this season, but I don't think he's going to be an RB1 by any means. I think he'll be a startable RB2 with a pretty safe floor given how much volume I expect him to get, but I think he's going to be pretty touchdown dependent, so I wasn't ecstatic about that pick, but had I passed up on Josh Jacobs, then I would have had no security at the running back position, and that's a harder one to address throughout the season. Plus, I felt like any of the receivers I'd be taking at that pick would be a reach, along with taking a quarterback there. So I took the best running back available in Josh Jacobs. So then we get to round 5. With pick 60, I did take Michael Thomas. This is a bit of a dart throw there, given all of the uncertainty surrounding Michael Thomas. We know he's banged up right now. We don't even know who the quarterback's going to be there. But when you get into round 5 and beyond, I think that it's okay to take a guy like Michael Thomas here because he does have that legitimate top 5 wide receiver upside. I think it's going to be hard to find in these later rounds. And I think that at this point, if he were to bust, you can live with it. You can survive with Michael Thomas performing really poorly this season. So I think that it's okay to take a gamble on Michael Thomas about this late. Obviously, when you guys are drafting, you might know more about Michael Thomas in his situation, so he could move a lot on the draft boards. But I was okay taking Michael Thomas there. Especially knowing that I can get a lot of receivers later on in the draft, and I already have Davante Adams and CeeDee Lamb, so I'm feeling okay there. And then I went ahead and took Chase Edmonds. He's a running back I'm actually really high on. I was really happy getting him in round 6 here. We know what he can do in the receiving game, and really there's 200 plus touches opening up in that offense after the departure of Kenyon Drake. I know they brought in James Conner, but I don't expect him to be much of a factor. Chase Edmonds is a legit shot to be a top 15 running back this season, and I think that as long as he can stay healthy and then hold on to that role, I really do think he's got a lot of upside, and getting him here is really awesome, especially given that I already had Antonio Gibson and Josh Jacobs. So even if, again, I can survive him not performing up to the expectations I've set for him, because if he doesn't, I still have those 2 running backs up ahead. So then we get into round 7 and 8. So here, because of the uncertainty I put myself in by getting Michael Thomas as my 3rd receiver, I felt that it was necessary for me to address the 4th and 5th receivers. And I think really that's something you're going to want to do in any scenario when you have a later pick. You're going to want to get at least 1 running back, and probably 2. This was a unique draft in which 10 of the first 11 picks were running backs. But if you do get 2 running backs, like in my ideal scenario at pick 12, I get Austin Eckler and Antonio Gibson. And in that scenario, you pretty much want to put your head down and just go wide receiver, wide receiver, wide receiver. And so you've got 5 wide receivers, unless you see good value at a tight end or quarterback position. But you really want to fill in, get as much depth at that position as you can because you missed out on it early on in the draft. And guys like Tyler Boyd and Curtis Samuel, I think are going to be really reliable and startable week to week. And I think that's something that's really valuable, especially given the fact that I made a couple riskier picks early on in the draft by taking Michael Thomas. Michael Thomas being the big risk here. So I think it was really important for me to get some depth at wide receivers so that if Michael Thomas is a bust again, then okay, that's fine. I've still got Devontae Adams, CeeDee Lamb, and Tyler Boyd every week. And that's not bad at all. I think I can totally win games with that trio. So then we got to pick rounds 9 and 10. We were getting sort of late in the quarterback world, and I really felt like it was important for me to get a quarterback that I was comfortable with. So I did take Jalen Hurts. I talked about him before on the channel, and I really do feel like he's poised to have a really great season this year. I think he's really the longest you can wait to get a quarterback and still expect QB1 production throughout the season, I think, is Jalen Hurts, and I did that here. And then at that point, there were no running backs or receivers that I really liked enough that I felt like it was worth reaching on there. So I took Robert Tonyan. I don't expect him to reproduce what he did last season, obviously, because he had, I want to say 12 touchdowns in the season, and that's not necessarily reproducible even with Aaron Rodgers coming back. But I do think he's a talented tight end. I think he's going to be a quality tight end to have each week. And I just wanted to get my starting lineup set before I went and added more depth. So then we get into rounds 11 and 12. I took one more running back here in Tariq Cohen. I think he's a guy that I can pretty much plug and play week to week. He's not going to be explosive, barring an injury to David Montgomery, but he should be involved enough in the receiving game. You can play him week to week and then get some production out of him. And I think he's going to be useful in a spot start with that upside. If he can somehow take on a lead role, or if maybe Justin Fields comes in and really changes the offense. So we've seen what Tariq Cohen can do in the past. He's had some really great fantasy seasons, and I think that getting him this late, especially with the pass catching ability he has, he's got a really safe floor, and he's a guy that really does have a little bit of upside. So I was happy getting him there. And then I took Devontae Parker here. I'm sort of in the same headspace of just getting wide receiver depth, the guys that I know that I can count on. Devontae Parker has been really consistent the last 2 years. Even with all the uncertainty at the quarterback position last season, him being a little banged up, he still produced a really quality outing in the season. And I think he's a guy that you can happily start week to week and not really worry about too much. So I was happy to get him this late. And then we get to rounds 13 and 14. And in round 13, I took Russell Gage. He actually slipped to me a little bit here. And I was really excited to get him here because he really is someone I think could have a great season this year with the departure of Julio Jones. We know the Falcons are going to have to pass the ball a ton with how horrible their defense is. And I do expect Kyle Pitts to probably be their number 2 passing option, but I don't think Russell Gage will be far behind there. We all know how hard it is for tight ends to transition to the NFL. So I think that Russell Gage is a guy that getting him this late is going to be really beneficial to you because he's going to be able to put up a lot of 5 reception, 50-yard games and spotting a touchdown every now and then. And that's a guy that you can pretty happily play on bye weeks, or if you're in a buy-in, I think he's got even more upside if something were to happen to Kyle Pitts or Calvin Ridley. In round 14 here, I took Deshaun Watson. Obviously, we're hearing some trade rumors circulating about him. There's a whole lot of uncertainty up in him in terms of his legal status and eligibility to play this season. But currently, he's reporting to training camp. I do think he might manage to play this season. And getting him in round 14 here, I think, is something that shouldn't be overlooked because if he doesn't play starting the season, drop him, whatever. It doesn't matter. But if he does play, you've got a top 5 quarterback and you got him for nothing. So even if you drafted a Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen early on, take Deshaun Watson late and you've got a hell of a trade piece to start the season. And if not, you drop him and you have an extra roster spot to start the season. So it's a really low risk ad. I think there's a ton of upside there, and I think it's hard to deny that. And then rounds 15 and 16, I just took my kicker and defense. So yeah, overall, you can see this team here. I think it's really solid. I've got a lot of depth at receiver position and 3 running backs I can comfortably start week to week in Gibson, Jacobs, and Edmonds. I'm really happy with my quarterback position with Hurts, and there's a lot of upside if Watson plays, and my tight ends are right there. So yeah, I do think that something to keep in mind when you do have a later pick here is you maybe aren't going to have as sexy of a roster because you are missing out on those top 5 guys. all those big name guys that everyone's really happy to get. That doesn't mean that you can't put up points. Like Antonio Gibson and Devontae Adams, assuming they just reproduce what they did last season, which I do think Gibson himself can take a huge step forward. That's a really formidable duo. And then on top of that, I'm getting guys like CeeDee Lamb and Josh Jacobs and Michael Thomas who really have a ton of upside. And there's just what you want to do here is you just want to focus on building as deep of a roster as possible and then just kind of make some upside plays early on, because I think that gives you a lot of potential to outperform those guys with the higher draft picks. And obviously, the higher draft picks are at a bit of an advantage getting those elite performers at the running back position. I don't think there's any reason to necessarily not want a later pick. I'm honestly, especially in my ideal drafts where I do get that Eckler and Gibson duo at the end of the first round, first start of the second round, I'm really happy about that. And I think that if you can get that duo, you might have 2 top 5 running backs there, and you got them at the end of the first round, start of the second. So yeah, just let me know what you guys think about this team. Feel free to comment if you got any questions about how you should approach your draft. I'm really happy to help anybody that's got any questions. I love talking to people about this stuff. Let me know how good you think my team is. Tell me I suck at this, whatever. I love getting comments and feedback from all of you guys. So yeah, I'll get one more video coming out pretty soon with an earlier draft pick. Show you guys how I'd approach having a top draft pick. I did one earlier with a middle round draft pick. And I've been mentioning this a little bit, but there was some interest at the end of last season in subscribers participating in a subscriber league with Tyler and I. So if there's still interest in that, just let me know in the comments, and then I'll be sure to put together a league, and then I'll admit people. I'll do some trivia questions, and the first 10 people to get trivia questions right will be entered into the league, and you guys can compete against Tyler and I, and we'll sort of track it throughout the year, and it'll be fun to see if any of you guys can compete with us. So thank you guys for watching so much. It really means a lot to me. I really appreciate you guys taking the time out of your day to give me your ears. If you haven't already, please like the video, subscribe to my channel. If you want more content like this, hit the notification bell so you know when I post it. And have a great day, everyone. Thank you very much for watching again.